So thank you for coming on to the running workshop today. As Johnny mentioned earlier, it's the first one that we're doing. This is an area that's quite passionate to me. I see a lot of runners, I'm a runner myself, so I'm looking forward to kind of sharing some knowledge with you about it. As Johnny mentioned, I want this to be as interactive as possible, so if you do, there will be a question and answer session at the end, but I mostly put that in for more general questions and answers. If you do find the topics that we're on at the time start to feel like you have any questions with it, feel free to jump in. I don't mind. I've got the PowerPoint to keep me on track, so it's not going to break my flow. So if you do want to have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, thoughts, comments, or questions that I can answer with it, then feel free to jump in at any point. Feel free to share as much as you want to share. So the content that we're going to go through today, a little bit more of an introduction. We've had a little bit so far. Going to be talking about a few myths about running. No doubt all of you heard a few things about why you should run, shouldn't run, and all that. I'm just trying to debunk some of the more common ones that we tend to hear in clinic, in particular the ones that I've heard so far. Moving on from there, we're going to be talking about a few training pitfalls. Obviously, we see a lot of runners, I see a lot of runners. There tend to be recurrent themes of things that tend to bring people into clinic. So as much as we'd like to help you as much as we can, if you want to avoid needing someone to see someone like me, then there might be a few helpful things in there. I'm going to talk a little bit about running gait. Now, this isn't to try and make you an expert in it, but this is kind of linked in with the running myth things. There's a few things I've heard people say about running gait that aren't necessarily true, some things that are true, but just to kind of give you a little bit of a physio's perspective on it and see how relevant it is from there. We're going to be talking about running equipment, not in excess. So if you do think you haven't mentioned this and you've got any questions, jump in. More than happy to answer anything from that point of view. And then we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about our services that we have here as well. Now there is a disclaimer with this as well. So I'm very much aware that I'm preaching to the choir. I'm guessing the vast majority of you are already runners here as well. So I'm very pro running, as you can probably tell. So there is going to be an element of that. Obviously this presentation has a physio bias to it as well. You speak to different people from different healthcare backgrounds, they'll give you their opinions. So this is going to be very much from a physio perspective of things. The recommendations that we're going to have in here are going to be quite general, because what's good for one person isn't good for another, and depending on what injury you've had, how you run, the amount that you're running, it's all going to be very different. So this is going to be quite general. If you want me to go specific in certain areas, I can do as well. And then the other thing is that I've tried to be as research focused as this, and as much as we'd like to stick to the research isn't always 100% concrete. We don't always have the exact answers for everything, but I'm going to try and be as specific as possible where I can. And then there's going to be a general Q&A. So this is going to be more of a general overview of things rather than taking a deep dive in one specific area with it. So as Johnny's already mentioned, we are in Thorpes Physiotherapy, established in 2010. We do have the Fleet Clinic, and then we're in the Sandhurst Clinic here. We're an award-winning service. We're accepted by most major insurance companies, and we currently have more than 170 five-star Google reviews and averaging out at a 5-star rating at the moment as well. So a bit of an introduction about myself as well. As we mentioned, I'm a very keen runner. That's me completing the Reading Half Marathon with my wife last year. I'm the clinical lead physiotherapist here. I've been qualified physiotherapist for 10 years, graduating from Brighton University. I'm a proud father of 2. My main interests at the moment are running, climbing, boxing and kickboxing as well. This is both from a personal point of view and from a clinical point of view as well. So if you happen to be a runner or a boxer as well, I'm more than happy to see you for that as well. Cool. So as I said, we're all runners here. We're all very pro running. We're not alone in that as well. So running is an ever increasingly popular sport. I thought football was going to be number 1, but apparently walking is the number 1 recreational sports activity in the country. Running is number 2. I guess it's the whole thing of you don't see too many 60, 70-year-old football players on the pitch is probably the reason for that. But 6.2 million people classify themselves as runners, so 9% of the population are runners. And if anyone's tried to sign up to the London Marathon this year, you'll probably find out how popular it's become. So this year they had a record number of 840,000 people signing up to the London Marathon. My wife was one of the many people that was unfortunately not on that list of people that got a place. And Parkrun has now expanded to having more than 300,000 people running it every week. So running is very popular, and it's a very good sport to get into. I'm not going to spend ages talking to you about the benefits of running because I'm once again preaching to the choir. I'm sure you all know everything's involved with that and why it's good for you, but here's a short list of all the things that running's good for. The list goes on and on and on, so I won't spend too much time on that. But just to get started into the nitty gritty of it all. So with running myths, hands up, anyone heard anything myths about running, anything that people said, good, bad, indifferent, that kind of you thought like that sounds like rubbish or that might have a grain of truth behind it? Anyone got any thoughts that come to mind with it? I've got a few, we'll go through in a sec obviously. But
You're trashing these was the first one.
Yep, that's going to be on there. Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
You need a hip joint replacement.
Yep, we're going to be covering that. That's all good. Anyone else got any suggestions or thoughts? Anything you've heard?
Some of the gear needs to be expensive, especially super squishy bouncy trainers at £100.
We will be talking about trainers and things. Yeah, it's that's all good. So myth number one is you'll wear out your joints. So I sat in clinic with a few orthopedic consultants, and a lot of them do still some of them still are very anti-running, but I'm an evidence-based practitioner trying to be up to date with research as much as I can, and there have been multiple studies where they've tried to look into, like, is this bad for your knees? Is this bad for your hips? And they've looked at thousands of runners and tried to compare them, like runners of certain ages compared with the general population. And all these studies keep coming out saying the same thing. Actually, when you look at runners versus the people of the same demographic, same age, the runners tend to have lower levels of arthritis in the hips and knees than the general population. And the people they're including in these studies are people who are seasoned marathon runners. So they are running a good amount. It's not that they're the lower level recreational runners. However, when you do start to get to ultramarathon running, that does tend to kind of correlate with it a bit more, where you can kind of have some injuries associated with that and some arthritis, but it's not the average person that's going out for a casual 50-mile run and things like that as well. So it's something that has very much stayed around for a while. People think it's true, but once again, hopefully there's a bit of reassurance that actually it's not as bad as you think it's going to be with that, and there may be a protective mechanism in running for your joints as well. Myth number two, I'm not built for running. Anyone heard that one as well? There's a really good book, and I can't remember the author, I did mean to look it up before this, called Exercise, that went into all the research behind it and things. But if you look at the animal kingdom, if you compare like sprinters and like how good we are over short distances, we're pretty terrible as animals at sprinting. The average house cat is actually faster than Usain Bolt. I think his top speed clock's at about 27 miles an hour, and the average house cat is closer to 30. So Usain Bolt isn't as fast as the average house cat. However, when we move more towards long distance running, we're not actually that bad comparatively. And as this picture at the bottom shows, there are a few marathons around the world where you can compete, well, ultra marathons, where you can compete against a horse. And the interesting thing is the horse doesn't always win as well. So when we do start to go more towards the long distances, we are pretty good, generally because the biomechanics of our legs, our larger gluteal muscles and things are good for like a lot more long distance running as well. The other one is runnings for young people. Anyone heard that one so far? Like, so I'm too old to run and things. Once again, not necessarily true. The most popular age categories for the London Marathon tend to be 30 to 39 and 40 to 49. But even when you look at that going slightly older, the numbers are here for like the New York Marathon last year. There was more than 12,000 people over the age of 50 that competed, 3,000 people over the age of 60. It rings true throughout most marathons. It is becoming, not only is it becoming a more popular sport, it's becoming a slightly older sport as well. And it's one of those things that if we take out if we get rid of the myth that running gives you arthritis, we probably should be encouraging more people to keep running with it as well. And the average parkrun age is 40.5 as well. Cool. And on that note of kind of older runners, anyone heard of Fauja Singh before? Anyone got a hand? Yeah, good, fantastic. So for those of you who haven't heard about him, it's a really, really interesting story. Fauja Singh he's a British citizen, born in India. When he started to get into his 60s and 70s, through concerns for his own health and a few tragedies within his family, he decided he wanted to get fit and look after himself, so he took up running at the age of 70, I think it was. Running was such a foreign concept to him that the first time he went to a running club, he turned up in a suit because he wasn't sure what the process was. But he stuck with it and he kept going. He founded a running group in Brighton called Sikhs in the City, which I think is a fantastic name. Maybe a bit 90s now, and he's carried on going with it. He ran I think it was his last competitive marathon he ran was the Toronto Marathon. I think he ran it at the ripe old age of 105. He's since now retired from running at the age of 113, but he's still been going strong all that time. So on that note, he has the times that he runs, all distances from sprint up to a marathon, are of that of a new world record, but they won't acknowledge him in the Guinness Book of World Record because he predates birth certificates in India, so he has no way of proving how old he is. So he does deserve it. But yeah. The next one is that you can run through pain, and this is one that we see this myth more than anyone else. A lot of people, like runners are usually adverse to pain. They're used to pushing themselves, challenging themselves. So I hear lots of different stories about people really going beyond what they should do. My favourite one was from about 2 years ago. I saw an ultramarathon runner who was during a competitive ultramarathon. He's like, my knee started to hurt at mile 20. I obviously ran the remaining 80 miles on it as well. And it's like, probably not the best idea. So it's keeping in mind that a little bit of muscle ache, a little bit of soreness is absolutely fine. If it's like pain, and it doesn't feel like a muscle ache, that might be something to give it a little bit more credence with as well. Some pain's normal, but the things to consider with, is this a normal pain, is this not a pain, is it there straight away the second you start running? Is it affecting your performance over multiple runs? Is it worsening over multiple runs? And then how long does it last afterwards? Because if you are a bit achy for like the day afterwards, that's fine. At day 2, maybe not. Day 3, this might be something a bit bigger unless you just run your first marathon or something like that. So those are all things to consider. It's a bit of discomfort is normal, a lot of pain is not necessarily normal. You should be running every day. Some people say this is not a common one that people say, but I have heard a few people say, have anyone heard that people say this before? Good, I'm glad, because it's not true as well. Muscle growth gets stimulated when we rest. So if you go to the gym and lift really heavy weights, if you do heavy training like running or anything like that, your body rebuilds your muscle through periods of rest. So you do need the periods of rest to grow new muscle. If you are training non-stop, that is a recipe for an overuse injury, or you can actually start to lose muscle mass with it because the body isn't given enough time to rest and rebuild from there. If you look at any training regime, even professional athletes' training regime, they always have their rest days in there. So I'm glad that none of you are falling into that trap from that perspective as well. All good. So training pitfalls next. Anyone had any major issues with training before that they were happy to admit to? I
mean, for me, I've done my first half fleet this year.
Nice.
And, my running training before that was based on a book, and I found that the programs in the book aren't really great for beginner runners.
Okay, yeah.
So you just have to listen to your body sometimes.
Yeah,
when you've got the aches and pains, and it's just like it says you've got to do a 12k run and you're really not feeling it, and everything's aching. And I think one of the pitfalls I had is don't try and train through it, actually listen and don't do it.
Yeah, very much listening to what we were saying before about like don't kind of push through pain, but also like you hit a very good point. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but it's that whole thing of that there's no with the overall theme of this, there's no one size fits all. If you're doing a certain regime and it's not working and it is giving you loads of pain, you're like, well, this doesn't feel right. Then it might not be the best one. Because for example, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, if you Google like training regimes for half marathons, you'll have hundreds of different ones that will come up from there as well, and they'll all be slightly different, so that no one is better than the other. They're usually usually a recurrent tenet with what they're trying to do with gradually progressing things and managing that with rest days and things. But sometimes one thing will work and another thing won't. It's all about balancing things from there. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So warming up. How many people warm up?
Not very good.
Yeah. As you can tell, we're putting on here, the main issue with running and warming up is that most runners don't, and that's the big thing with it. When they do, another common thing that goes wrong is that people do lots of static stretches. They'll be like, I'll either warm up, I'll do this, I do this and I'm warm, or they will do a really big stretching regime, but actually with current research we found that static stretching isn't actually the best thing for a warm-up as well. So it's there is some evidence that if you do loads of static stretches before performing any exercise, it can actually have a negative impact on there from overstretching the muscles beforehand. What they do recommend though is doing more dynamic stretches. So you may have seen people before where they're kind of holding on to something, swinging their leg up and down to move it around. That can be really good. It's slightly more comfortable than static stretches, so win-win. Doing some light body weight exercise can be really useful. My warm-up routine usually is a combination of both, some nice dynamic stretches, some lunges, some body weight exercises like squats, heel raises. I've had issues with my calves over the years as well, so I always do make sure I do a fair few calf raises before I start. If you look at the research, they usually say 5 to 8 minutes beforehand of doing warm-up, but I think like if you can do a few minutes more than you're already doing, that's usually winning from there as well.
I'm sure I have time.
Yeah, there is that. If you're doing like an event, like a park run or something like that, usually people do get there a bit early, so that's usually a good time to do a bit of a warm-up. You can take your time with it, but if you're going out by yourself, most people are like, I just want to run, I just want to go, but do a little bit, because a little bit will help.
Amy suggests go for a walk.
Yeah.
Doing a round the block.
Yeah.
Before you go for a run, so I don't know whether that's...
No, absolutely. So I didn't mention that on here, but it is completely bang on the money, because with a good warm-up should be representative of the exercise you're going to do. So if there's a bodybuilder who wants to do a warm-up, they'll do very light weights as a warm-up, and then they'll kind of go into their weights rather than kind of being like a bodybuilder thing, I'm going to go for a run and stuff like that. Like they should be doing cardio, but often that's not the case as well. But yeah, so doing a walk, a little bit of a light jogging back and forth, it can work really well as a warm-up for it as well. So yeah. Another one is variation of intensity, variation of training as well. Do most of you guys have like a set routine you do? Do you run how you feel, or is it usually the same thing, or what anyone want to share what their routine's like?
Well, I just run twice a week and get one in the weekend if I can.
Cool, fantastic. Is there much variation of distance, or is it more a case of like I'm just going to go as far as I feel, or?
At the weekend I go as far as I'm comfortable. And
Okay.
during the week it's 2 5-mile, 6-mile runs.
Good. So that's good, like the variation of it. I will put my hand up and say I am terrible at this, because it is, I am a run how I feel kind of person. I'm not taking my own good advice with this as well, because like yourself, having variation in training has shown to be very effective with it. If you look at any running program for like marathons, half marathons and stuff like that, it will have like your shorter runs, your longer runs, your speed sessions and stuff like that, and it usually mixes it up quite well. And the reason for that is variations in speed, distance and things like that does have a positive effect on your body. Kind of like the fact that with any new activity we do, we get stronger for a given time. If you're doing the same thing all the time and you're not varying it, then your body doesn't have to adapt to too much. Whereas if you're constantly changing it, it's always like, well, we need to be stronger for this, we need to be stronger for this, we need to be better at that. So it optimizes everything a little bit more. The other thing with it is, we know that exercise has a very positive impact on your immune system. If you're training hard at a constant level, there is some evidence actually it starts to have a negative effect at that point. I used to work with someone who did triathlons quite a few years ago, and she was always training just a set rigid routine that never really changed, and she was always ill. She was always having colds and stuff like that, because it can have a detrimental effect always doing it at the exact same level, exact same intensity. And going back to what we said before, like incorporating rest days, on the fact of based on what we said before as well, with that kind of keeping things varied and stuff as well, it's being aware that if you are varying things, you don't want to go too crazy with it as well. Like if you're doing any new exercise or adding anything new into your routine, you do want to take your time with it, you do want to go gentle. Like the first time when you start running where you're like, I'm just going to go out, I'm going to take it easy, I'm not going too far. Hopefully that's what happens anyway. But with any new exercise you do need to tread carefully with it. So if there's any new element you're throwing into your routine, you do want to kind of tread carefully. I know that runners aren't always great at hearing that as well. Any thoughts on that so far at all?
And I was able to try and used to do like a deal a week, so every 4th, 5th week, just have a really, maybe go out for like a gentle couple of rounds, but really, nothing.
Yeah.
No intervals,
Yeah, I
really
mean,
long.
once again, you raise a very good point though. So in like the bodybuilding world, they do have like detraining weeks where they will cut it down quite a bit, and then when they go back with a bang, and you can see really good performances with it. I think there are detraining weeks with most marathon plans that you see with it. Not all of them, I think. I'm not going to profess to knowing all the marathon plans and stuff like that. But yeah, it is a very good training method with that, kind of like staggering it as well. Cool. So training progressions does kind of lead into it. As we mentioned before, there are hundreds of different guides available online for different ways to approach running. Runners World, Garmin Coach, Night Run Club, the list goes on and on. There's no, like, I can't say do this one, do that one. If we're looking at kind of like easing into things, I usually do go more for like a couch to 5K if you're completely new to running, primarily because it is a very gentle introduction towards it as well. As we mentioned before, allowing yourself some flexibility with training. Even with the best program, things can go wrong, as we mentioned before. Strength and conditioning. Hands up there, anyone who does any strength and conditioning work to help with their running? Good, fantastic. Yeah, good, fantastic. So this is kind of a big one as well, because like, taking it at face value, this isn't just true for running, this is true for all sports, all exercise, all activity. If you're just doing like one form of exercise, like that's what I do, and you keep going with it, that is good to an extent, but you do kind of, there are areas where you don't get strong optimally by just doing the sport itself. If you look at any kind of elite athlete, be it football, running, like rugby, boxing, anything like that, you always see them when they're in their training montages and stuff where they're doing their sport, but then they're in the gym. They're doing the sport and they're in the gym, because if you are doing one particular exercise, even though you're using the main driving muscles to kind of propel you forwards with running, you're not going to be optimally loading everything from there. So a big thing that we tend to see in here is people who are really strong in one area and their body's compensated for the weakness by making that one area even stronger. And that's all well and good for like kind of just about getting you through it, but then if you keep going with that one muscle that's not really the driving force that's keeping things going, it can start to get irritable over time because it's kind of dragging its heels, everything else is kind of balancing it. If you can have like a well-rounded strength and conditioning routine, it's good for preventing injury and it's good for optimal performance as well. So it's one of the things that we do in our running assessment program. The main muscles that we tend to kind of focus on with trying to optimize things as much as possible tend to be like your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your calf complex. There are literally thousands of different exercises you can do for it, so it's just a case of like trying to find a good exercise routine that works for you. You don't necessarily need to go to the gym to do these things. These are things you can do at home. There are different ways that you can go about doing it, but this does tend to be a big one that kind of does drive people into the clinic if they have been trying to progress their running quite a bit as well, if they haven't been doing some strength and conditioning work on the side as well. So running gaits. Anyone, I know the term gait is something we throw around quite a lot in physio. Everyone know what we mean by running gait as well? I think most people probably do. Anyone, hands up any like heel runners? Anyone know how they run? Heel runners? Yeah, good heel runners. Yeah. Anyone midfoot runners at all? Midfoot runner. I'm kind of going between midfoot and toe runner. Any toe runners as well? Yeah, all good, fantastic. So running gait is one of those things that gets talked about quite a lot in the running world, but like once again, it's that thing that not everyone understands the relevance of it or why, but the thing to keep in mind with it is if you see 100 runners and you analyse all of their gait patterns, you will find 100 different gait patterns. It's not a thing where you need to run exactly this way. There's always variations with it. Even if you look at elite runners, that you'll see variations of how they run as well. We definitely see this with when we see people in clinic and put them on a treadmill, if they've got a running related injury and seeing them there, it's always different. It's a bit of detective work to try and see what's going on with analysing. Is the gait contributing towards it? Is it not contributing towards it? Do we change it? Don't we change it? Things as well. But the big thing is like, what's normal? With all this variation of like how people run, what is normal, what's not normal as well. Like some people get they come in and they're always shy, like, oh I don't think my gait's gonna be very good and stuff like that. Like sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't matter, but it's something that it varies a lot with it as well. And as I said, there's general advice about what is good for gait, how you should be running. It's not always useful, and there are sometimes flavour of the month gait corrections that get thrown around as well. So I fell victim to this many years ago there was a big push of being like, you should always run on your toes, toe running is best, and everyone should be running on their toes, but the problem is, it's a bit like one of those like sliding board puzzles. If you change your gait and move things around, sometimes you change one thing and it messes up loads of other things as well. So it's something, gait is something to be aware of if you do have a problem. If you don't have a problem, it's probably not something that you really need to worry about too much, unless you are looking to kind of really optimize something, and that's something that we can look into if need be as well. So talking about heel striking, toe running, and midfoot, if not too many people put up their hands, so we'll go into a bit more detail about what it means. So when you're running, the first point of contact with the floor of how your foot lands determines like your running gait, running style to a certain degree. So you've got your toe runners where you tend to kind of run primarily on the ball of your foot. You have people who run with a mid stance where your foot's landing flat, and then you have your heel runners where your heel strikes the floor first as you're running. So for heel strikers, 85% of runners tend to be, these numbers are estimates at best, but like 85% of runners tend to be heel strikers where their heel's landing first. It's more common than people think, even with all the vilifying of heel running that came out a few years ago as well. With any kind of change, with any kind of gait pattern, there are biases to injuries one way or the other, and it does put strain on different areas with it. And for heel runners, it tends to be more force goes through the knees and more force goes through the hip joint. But as I said, it is one of those things where it's very common. It's the most common running style for like elite distance runners as well. The speed does have a factor with it. So if you look at sprinters, almost all sprinters are like toe runners because you are just trying to propel yourself forward as fast as you can. Around 5 or less than 5% tend to be toe runners landing on their toes, and this is better for your hips and knees, but and it does absorb the shock a bit better, mostly because if you're landing on your heel, the force just goes straight up. If you're landing on your toes, your strain is going to be absorbed by your calf muscles a little bit more, so overall the strain that goes to your body is less, but because of that, because you're changing how you're landing, more force goes through your calf complex, the tendons in your ankles, the muscles. As I said before, I'm a toe runner, I've had calf issues before for that reason as well. So it's things to be aware of with that. I'm not saying that you need to change one way or the other drastically. Then you have your somewhere in the middle, your midfoot runners as well. So this is kind of less than 10% of runners. It's kind of a bit of a balance between everything with force distribution and where the load gets put. And interestingly, Mo Farah is a midfoot runner. Some people have heard him say that he's a heel striker, and it is one of those things where you look at the video of him running in slow motion, it could be one, could be other, but the general consensus he tends to be a bit more of a midfoot runner. That doesn't mean that everyone needs to be a midfoot runner though. So going back to what we said about changing things, and is this important, isn't this important, does it matter, doesn't it matter? So changing your style isn't always beneficial, keeping in mind that sliding board puzzle. Sometimes you change it and it messes things up from there. If you say you're a toe runner and you're getting calf problems, sometimes it's like, well, if you change it up to do more heel striking, that can be useful, but that's only in that specific situation, and it's not always applicable for that. And the other thing is that if you are changing it to be going from like toe running to heel running, sometimes other muscle groups start to work harder, and then you compensate by having calf problems by now having like hip problems or something like that as well. So it's not always that straightforward. There may be benefits, but it's not often the first thing that we consider. I have advised people to change how they run a little bit before, but it's not always the number one thing on there as well. I think that's kind of a bit clinical and things like that. Everyone happy with that? Any questions about running gait as well?
I'm more of a shuffle runner.
Shuffle runner, yeah. We do see a fair few of those as well. Yeah.
Shuffle runner. So whether that, I mean, that's obviously because I'm heel striking, but I look at pictures and I don't pick my knees up. I sort of wonder if I could force myself to pick my knees up. Would I go faster? Would I, you know? It
depends. Unfortunately, that's the theme with this a little bit. We do see quite a lot of shuffle runners though, and it's quite awkward sometimes because
I'm a fast shuffle runner.
Yeah, I've seen some very fast shuffle runners.
But somebody, when I was doing Santos Park Run many years, well, quite a while ago, and this chap came up beside me and he said, you're sort of a fast walker.
Yeah. I've seen that a few times in clinic before. Like some people are like, oh, can you look at how my running gait is? And I'm a bit like, well, you're not actually running. It's just the definition of running is having one period. They call it flight time, where you have both feet off the floor. And some people are just incredibly fast walkers with it as well. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are ways of making that a bit more efficient from a running perspective as well to actually run, probably. But yeah. So another one flavour of the month thing that's come around more recently is cadence. Everyone know what I mean by cadence as well? Yeah. So I've heard a lot of people being like, oh, I need to increase my cadence, and it is true to a certain extent that when you look at elite runners, when you look at people who have a very good running efficiency, the cadence of runners tends to be around this like 70 to 80 steps per minute thing. There's a reason why if anyone's got a Garmin or anything like that, it tries to track your cadence as well. it's something that is, when we are looking at changing gait, it is one of the things that we do consider with it, more higher up on the list of it. But some people do get very focused on it, and they are very like, oh, I need to increase my cadence, but they start kind of doing some really shuffle, kind of fast running with it, and then things fall apart with it as well. So it's not a one size fits all thing. It's not something that is going to fix everyone's running by kind of just increasing their cadence. It's not a panacea, but it is something that can be useful if it's needed. If you're running fine, you don't need, and you're running fast, you don't need to kind of always change it from there. If you are looking to increase your cadence, like if you're like, I feel like I've got a good stride, I've got a good pace, I want to improve my efficiency, a simple way that you can do to increase your cadence if you did want to do it is using, you can get on apps like Spotify, you can download like running playlists for certain cadences as well. So there'll be, it's good for pacing more than anything else, but you can use it for cadence where you have like every single song on there will be like at 170 beats per minute, or every single song will be 150 beats per minute. It's a good way to just kind of like keep your rhythm, good for pacing, but it can be good if you want to improve your cadence as well. Has anyone been given any advice about cadence and stuff before as well? Any happy to share?
Yeah, the thing that I tried to get to about 180, and part of the recommendation was that you'll probably find to get that many steps per minute, you'll probably have a slightly shorter stride length.
Yeah.
And so if you overstride, I was told, so I don't know if it's right, but you might put more pressure on your knee.
Yeah.
So if you're, I guess, making contact with the ground when your knee is further forward, I suppose, you're putting less stress on that way. So they were saying you're less likely to get injured from doing it, and you're potentially a bit more efficient.
Yeah, that's true. Like, overstriding can be an issue with efficiency. Increasing cadence is a way to do it, but sometimes, and this is where it gets a bit complicated, because sometimes you can be overstriding with a short stride. And what I mean by that is that the back foot isn't really going very far back, but the forward foot is going quite far forwards, and that's not good, because if you're landing on it from there, it's jarring your knee a little bit. If you move this back, that does help, but that doesn't necessarily mean this one's going to go further back. And it's all of those things where it kind of becomes that sliding board puzzle again with it as well. It's relevant, but it's relevant. But that, like cadence can improve overstriding for that reason. It's not great to overstride. It can increase risk of or it can put more strain through the knee. If you're getting knee pain, it can be a good thing, but in that situation, that's the case with it as well. I know I'm being very vague, but it's hard to give like concrete advice because everyone runs differently. So running equipment. Anyone? Someone mentioned something about running equipment earlier. How many people have a running watch as well? Yeah, cool, fantastic. Any other pieces of equipment that you want to talk about as well? We're going to go through a few, but it's not a huge list yet.
Do you like, I forget what we call it, sleeve life?
Yes.
Does that help?
We will be talking about that in a minute. Yes, fantastic, good.
Different types of shoes.
Different types of shoes,
You get off-road shoes, you can get road shoes, you can get over-pronation shoes.
Yeah.
I wear the same ones for everything.
Yeah, cool.
Because I'm comfortable, but
that's alright. We will be covering that as well, cool.
Insoles, can they help, or
they can,
specific ones?
Yeah, they can do, and that goes into more of the pathology, not pathology might be a wrong word, but like more the biomechanics side of things as well. So like if you do have like really flat feet and it is causing you problems, having some orthotics or insoles to kind of support that can be really useful. The same as some shoes that you buy will naturally have that inbuilt into them, can be useful, but it's not that everyone needs to have a pronated shoe, not pronated shoe, barefoot and all that kind of stuff as well. So we will be covering that. If I don't go into enough depth with any of these things, please do let me know as well. Did you?
Support on the feet. So I've been suffering from a stress fracture from running.
Okay,
I tried to run with a support on, but it actually made it feel worse.
Okay.
So I think it was restricting my movement too much.
Okay,
But I don't know whether I just didn't have the right size, was it too tight, or
okay. And just to kind of clarify, is that you had a stress fracture and now you're returning to running as your more
I'm returning
to
running from the stress fracture, but I got the stress fracture from running.
Okay, I think the difficult part comes if you're, it's hard to say really, because if you're wearing some kind of support to help with the fact that you had a stress fracture with running, the shoe should provide you with enough support to help. If the stress fracture is definitely like, well, that's done, that's healed, that's okay, the shoe you have should have enough cushioning to help support it with from there. If there has been any like residual structures that are irritated, then what kind of support is it you've got going when you go?
It's just it's like a little sock, pressure sock to put on.
Yeah.
And no one told me to get it. I just googled what sort of things we could use.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I think like having like some kind of like sock thing for it wouldn't be my first port of call. Mostly because if you are recovering from a stress fracture, sometimes, because like when you run, I keep forgetting the exact figures. I think it's something like when you run, for every stride that you take, it's something like 2.3 or 2.7 times worth of your body weight going through your foot at each stride. So it's one of those things that I don't think that having a sock or anything like that is going to be the be all and end all with helping it. You probably do need to do something to kind of recondition your foot for the strains that are going through it. That can be by a gentle graded return to running, but it can be through like targeted exercises as well. Because running doesn't have to be the thing that gets you better with it. But and if you tried running, it's just not working regardless of what you're doing. It might be worth having a bit more of a detailed look and seeing like, well, how can we get the foot more comfortable? Is it painful when you're doing other activities or just running?
No. I mean, it's not really that painful with running now. I'm coming back out of it, but it was more wearing it to prevent it happening again.
Okay. From that point of view, I don't think it would necessarily, and I might be making a bit of a sweeping statement with this, but I don't think it would necessarily reduce the risk of a stress fracture. When I said before about like, our bodies adapting based on the demands we put on them, it's not that it's exclusively to the muscles and tendons with that. Our bones do adapt as well. So, and I know this is going off topic a little bit, but there's a study done a few years ago called the Livermore trial, and they took a bunch of people with osteoporosis, so brittle bones, and these are people in their 60s and 70s. They gradually introduced them to powerlifting, so exposed like the whole things you see on World's Strongest Man and stuff like that. They obviously started really gently, and then they built themselves up and up and up from there. And by the end of the program, some of these people in their 60s and these 70s and 80s with osteoporosis were deadlifting like their body weight and stuff like that, so they were going really heavy with it, and unsurprisingly they got stronger, their mobility improved, but also their bone density improved as well. So we do know that with heavy exercise you can improve the resilience of your musculoskeletal structure to exercise, but it's going back to what I said before, if you try one thing and it doesn't work, the question is then try another thing. I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to prevent it, but prevent it from having stress fracture. I wouldn't say you need to have it from there, but I would say to kind of take your time with it. Do you feel much, it's not painful, does it feel comfortable when you're running on it at the moment? Or is it still
I can still feel it at times, but it wasn't half as bad as it was. So
okay, yeah.
It is getting better.
Good.
It's just people who are like, oh, you should strap it, and you know, when you're running.
Yeah. I'm not against strapping, but with strapping, my question I usually have is like, well, when do you stop in those situations? Because if the injury's gone and you're relying on it, there comes the point like if you have a crutch, if you've got an injury and using a crutch, there becomes a point where you need to get rid of the crutch as well. And it's things like that can be more of a psychological crutch that I need to put this onto a run as well. So if it's not too bad and it's going okay, I probably would say don't worry about it too much, but I would say take your time with it as well. The worst thing you can do is try and go all guns blazing back, as we discussed previously as well. Cool, all good. Anyone got any questions about that so far? I know we're being slightly off topic, but yeah, all good, cool, fantastic. Thank you for sharing there as well. So shoes, going straight on shoes. It is a bit of a minefield looking at running shoes. Like you go, all the different brands will have their different things. Once again, there's the flavour of the month of all the different stuff that happens. There's kind of a sensible, like common sense approach to go with it. And the best thing that, the number one thing that we tend to go through is like the comfort filter of literally just trying on shoes and see what's comfortable. That's usually the first kind of port of call. Mostly because if you're walking around the shoe shop and it doesn't feel comfortable, it's probably not going to feel comfortable when you're running on it as well. So comfort is usually the first best place to start. But that doesn't necessarily correlate well with efficiency. So like if you have shoes that are more comfortable, that doesn't necessarily going to run any better than shoes that are not like the optimal comfort ones. But it is kind of a good place to start because you do want to feel comfortable when you're running. There's barefoot shoes as well, where they talked about where there's this whole, once again, flavour of the month thing of like, having reduced cushioning in your shoes, it means that you can strengthen your feet, the muscles in your feet a bit more, it conditions you for like the forces going in your foot. And that is true to a certain extent, but we go back to the whole thing before of if it behaves behaves itself, if it's okay, if you tolerate it well.
Sorry, what is barefoot shoe?
Barefoot shoes. So have you seen their? I don't have a picture of one here. They're Vibro forefinger. They're like these shoes that 5 fingers. Yeah, sorry, 5 fingers.
There's no padding in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a rubber sole basically, and they've got individual bits for your toes.
Yes,
and stuff
I've
as
seen
well.
somebody run. Matt Johnson, he runs.
Yeah. They're good from a point of view of because there's minimal padding, there's not very much weight to them at all. If there's not very much weight to them, every stride is slightly easier to do because there's less weight to drag with it as well. So the theory behind it is it conditions your foot for hitting the ground, being more resilient towards it, it's less weighty so you can go a bit further. And that is all well and good, but it's not for everyone. And the problem that happened particularly with this big change where everyone's like, oh, we need barefoot shoes and things like that, is people start to get foot pain a lot with it.
And do you think that's maybe why 85% of people are heel strikers, because the padding from the shoe kind of acts as like what would have been the natural shock absorber?
Yeah, I think that's true. I did read a bit that if you do go to a barefoot shoe, everyone naturally goes more towards toe running. But after a while, if they are a natural heel striker, they will eventually start to adopt a heel strike. It can take quite some time, but they do tend to do that as their foot becomes more conditioned with it as well.
So I moved barefoot. I read Born to Run.
Yeah.
I
think that's down there actually.
Yeah. And instantly pulled my calves. But they got me to run on my toes, and that was a huge thing. I just wanted to change how I run and got rid of the shin splints as a result. But then you can't run in swimming in barefoot shoes. So
you feel every single stone, every
stone. And you're thinking, this is good. This is how people used to. No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I've gone back to normal shoes, but it's got the technique in there.
That's good. Cool.
Yeah, but I find that I toe run until I'm start to get tired, and then I start to come back a bit, and then you come back forward again.
Yeah, I tend to, that's exactly the same with me. I'm more of a toe runner. When I get tired, it's more of a midfoot. I might vary a little bit. Some days will be exclusively toe running, some days will be exclusively mid strike, but it depends on how I feel, depends on how tired I am or how far I'm going as well. That's the kind of the theory behind the barefoot running. Any questions about barefoot running at all as well? Any more questions? So the other thing to be aware of with the shoes, on top of like, we'll come to pronation in a sec, but everyone familiar with like the heel drop or heel to toe drop as well with the shoes? So if you pick up a running shoe, they'll sometimes with good brands, they'll often kind of talk about the amount of like heel drop or heel to toe drop they've got. It's basically you pick it up and you put your hand in it, how much higher the heel is than the toe. It varies quite drastically between running shoes. Like if you wear some of the Hoka shoes, they've got a massive heel drop, and the whole idea behind it is they have ridiculous padding underneath the heel, so that they feel like if you're a heel striker, it's like running on pillows. It gives you loads and loads of support. If you're a forefoot runner, that's kind of useless because you're spending all your time not putting pressure through those parts of the shoe. So depending on how you run, this is the reason why in running shops they do have treadmills to see how you run, so they can recommend it from there. So a heel striker, a Hoka, if you've had issues with your knees or hips or heels as well, like with in your heel striker, having more of a bigger heel to toe drop can be quite useful, but not always benefits. So yeah, I said like benefits heel strikers. Lower heel to toe drop is better for midfoot or forefoot runners as well. Pronation support, as we mentioned before, it's needed if it's needed. Like if you don't have much, if you're not kind of collapsing your arches down, there's no point getting a shoe that's going to kind of hold you up in a pronated position. What I mean by pronation, if anyone's familiar with it, if you see people like flat-footed, where you see people standing and their feet are just kind of like slabs of steak on the floor, it's completely flat. Like if your feet are going flat like that, we call it pronating, and they'll often give you insoles or they'll give you the pronator support shoes where it kind of raises it up a bit more, and it corrects the biomechanics of the feet, and it should make you run more efficiently. It's needed if it's needed, but not everyone needs that. Some people have perfectly good arches, some people have very high arches, and then there's other issues with that as well. But yeah, these are the things to consider with the shoes. I don't have any particular brand that I'm like, you need to buy this, you need to buy that. One thing I will say as a side note is that most people that I've done a running assessment with and they've come in, I always look at their shoes to kind of see the wear patterns on it. when people come in and they've worn Brooks, they'll be like, oh, I've done like 300 miles on those shoes, and I'm like, these look new. So like Brooks do seem to wear, like they have quite a long time to wear them out as well. So that's the only brand related mention we're probably going to have in this whole thing, except Garmin maybe, but yeah.
Do people run in the same? I mean, I've always run in Asics. I mean, for years and years, I will only really buy Asics, but I don't know what other people are. Do you vary it or?
Anyone got any particular brands they like at all?
Yeah, probably Brooks, but I've tried others and it's not quite the same. So I kind of went back to what I found most comfortable.
Yeah, I think one thing with running shoes as well, where people tend to find something and they stick with it, is they're really expensive. So once you find something that works, go with it. There's nothing wrong with having one pair or style of shoe you go with or brand and stick with it, because if it works, it works. It's all good. I don't often recommend people changing shoe unless they do have something that is wildly different for them. Like they have very like high arches and they're getting loads of pronator support with them. Like you probably don't need that from it. That would be the only real recommendation I usually do to change things. Cool, yeah. So the other thing to consider with it is hard to predict what will work as well. You can have one brand that works really well, and you try a different shoe within that brand, or this doesn't feel great as well. The only way you're going to know is you need to experiment a little bit. As I say, comfort's a good start. Don't make drastic changes as well. So if you have got a shoe that, it's good to be aware of, like if your shoe does have a good big heel to toe drop, because if you have something that does have a big one, and then the next shoe you find, much like change to barefoot, has a very low or minimal heel to toe drop, like the barefoot stuff has like nothing basically, that can cause issues, calf strain, things like that as well. So it's being aware of these things with buying shoes, but don't feel like you need to kind of dogmatically go to one thing or the next. Go with what feels right. If you find something that works, it works basically.
Sorry, just to touch on the shoes. Should you be changing if you're going off-roading to road running, like trail running?
Good question. Yeah. So with the like from my experience with like the trail running shoes, it's more a case of the terrain's going to be different. If you use the shoes you normally do road running with trail running, firstly they may wear out quicker. They may not give you the same support as they do when you're doing it off-road. You might need something a bit more. So if you have trail shoes, they do tend to be a bit more hard wearing, they do tend to be a bit firmer. If you're going to step on a root or a stone, you're not going to feel it as much in those. So I'm with you in the fact that I have one pair of running shoes at the moment, and that's it. And I do run through Swindley Forest as well. So it's for like sake of it being like optimal training for it, you probably do want to kind of have two pairs of shoes if you are planning on mixing up a little bit. I wouldn't say it's essential, but if you do want to kind of, particularly like as you said, if you are recovering for an injury, it probably would make sense to do that as well if you are planning on doing trail running at the same time. Once again, different people might have different views on it, but that's my thoughts on the topic of it as well. So as I said earlier, most people have, quite a lot of people have running watches. I like running watches. I'm a tech geek. I love my stats and everything like that, so I'm very much loving the running watch. It's good at measuring the key metrics you want. As I said, it can track your cadence and things like that. It can be quite accurate. It can give you, it tracks your pace, it can prompt you. I mean, my one, if I'm going too slow, it'll vibrate, say like you're being too slow, speed up and stuff like that, which can be a good thing. And some of them even have safety precautions with it as well. So they'll, like, if your heart rate goes too low, or if you have an injury and things like that, you can kind of like get help with it in some cases with it. This is a term I'm not sure how, like, if this is completely made up or not, but Strava syndrome. Has anyone had it before where someone's looked at your Strava or your tracking and been like, oh, my pace is better than yours, or oh, you didn't run very fast on that race or anything? I used to work with someone who now works exclusively, he's in Wales, but he works exclusively with like fairly elite endurance athletes. And he said he put up a blog post from one of his athletes he's training with, and he was like, you need to do more like kind of slower, like rest and runs essentially. He's like, I can't do that. He's like, why? He's like, well, I can't put that on Strava. You're like, what? So now rather than Strava helping you train, Strava's changing how you train because you don't want to be judged by it. I got pace shamed by my friend a little while ago, being like, my pace is so much faster than yours and everything like that as well. So it's just to be aware of that. If you are someone who likes kind of posting things like that, that can be the one downside to it. Everyone recognise this album picture as well? Yeah, I love it. I found about 50 pictures of this, and I wasn't sure which one to put, so I thought I'd put a couple more up on there as well, because I thought they were really good. This one's my favourite, I think, as well. It's actually from Berlin as well.
It's very iconic. Was it
Yeah.
Khrushchev on the left?
I think so, like the graffiti up from the Berlin Wall, but this was actually done in Berlin as well. So it's Yeah, it's good. To be fair, I haven't looked in detail. It might have been fake, but I still like it anyway. But yeah, cool. So going on to compression garments as well. So I tried to look into this. A few people, when I said I was doing this talk, a few people said, "What are your thoughts on compression garments as well?" And I was just kind of, I haven't used them personally before, so I tried to do a bit of a deep dive into the research, like do they work, don't they work? And the research seems to be quite mixed with everything as to how much they help performance. So some studies are saying they help with recovery afterwards. Some are saying that they do show signs of like kind of good performance improvement, but it's like a marginal gain with it. It's not a big difference with it. Some people don't find them comfortable, and they say that they overheat with them as well. So it's kind of, it doesn't really come to much of a conclusion. But the one thing that did make me think I'm probably not going to worry about them was this photo from the Paris Olympics this year with the marathon. Notice anything about all the runners in it? Yeah, so from my point of view, like if this was going to give you, because like the Olympians are they're the characters of marginal gains, they will do anything to kind of get that 1% improvement. If none of them are bothering to wear it, then it might not really make that much of a difference as well.
Could it help from an injury perspective rather than a performance perspective?
Possibly. Once again, I can't give definitive answers for it. I've tried to have a bit of a look into it, but I haven't read enough to convince me one way or the other. It is open. If you do use them and you do find it does make things feel more comfortable, by all means keep going. I'm definitely not anti-compression garments, but I don't see anything that's kind of veered me one way or the other with the research, basically.
Because I had someone, I don't know if it's a myth, but someone said that like with shin splints, if you improve the like some heat treatment or like get the blood flow, that will help. So where it said about potentially overheating, maybe that's what you need. To get that blood flow. I don't know if that makes a difference. Or
if I was giving you any advice at the moment, it would be like speculation more than kind of proof behind it as well. So it's worth a try. If it is one of these things that is, you found it makes it more comfortable, by all means keep going with it as well. But yeah, can't give one way or the other answer with it as well. So before we go into like our service, any questions about anything we talked about, anything that we haven't covered so far that you wanted to cover? Any questions or thoughts at all?
What are your thoughts? So a lot of the trainer adverts that seem to be popping up on social media or whatever at the moment, or even at the running club on track nights, it seems to be squishier the trainer soles.
Yeah, like the more cushioning behind
Nike,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, when you then run behind someone, and as opposed to having a nice sort of centre sort of strike, so you've got off at the front end. Is there any thoughts on those? Because I mean, they look nice. They sound quite nice. Yeah. But at the same time, it's a couple £100.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my bank account than Nike.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things. I'm running the risk of telling what you said to me back to you now as well, but like it is that whole thing of like if you are kind of every time you're landing your foot is wobbling all over the place, that's not the best shoe. But if you have had a big injury and you are kind of like once again stress fracture, getting back to it, having a shoe with a bit more cushion could be good, but it's that balance between stability versus kind of comfort and impact shock absorption as well. Like if it is to the point where it's not going around, it might not be that it's a bad shoe, but it might be a bad shoe for that person when you see it like that as well. The other thing to consider, and I think I meant to cover this a bit earlier, but the amount of more cushioning makes it more comfortable, but more cushioning also weighs more, so you can start to start to get really heavy with the cushioning. It's going to slow you down a little bit because every step is going to have a little bit more weight to it. When you pick up the shoe, it feels very negligible with the weight, but after you run like 10 miles on it, that is going to slowly like ramp up with that as well. So yeah, but cool, no worries, cool. Any other thoughts or questions about?
Similar thing with the carbon plates, that seems to be a big thing now as well. Bringing those in.
I think they're more common in trail shoes than they are in the road running shoes. Or at least I've seen more of them in the trail shoes and the road running shoes. I think if you've got a carbon plate in it and you're planning on doing road running, kind of depending on how stable you feel, I probably wouldn't gravitate towards a carbon plate if I'm not planning on going off road. But once again, because I only bought one pair of shoes, I might kind of invest in that because I do run through Swindley Forest when I get the chance. Like not so much in the winter because by the time I get out it's dark and things like that. I'm not going there in the dark. But yeah, so. If you are doing more outside like off-road running, then yeah, probably. But I wouldn't say necessarily you need to go for that as well. But yeah, cool. Awesome.
I think we're getting the same adverts.
Yeah. Darn that algorithm. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cool, so I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about our services here. So the number one being, obviously I've spent this whole time saying like, it depends on what's going on with it. So we do have, to get the specifics of how you're running, we do have a service called the Run Lab. It's a bespoke running assessment service where we use a whole runner profile. So we're looking at like what if you have your running goals, how much you're training, what you're looking to kind of build up towards. The assessment involved is as in depth as we can go basically. So we're looking at your general flexibility through the key muscles throughout your legs, muscle capacity testing, see how strong are all these individual muscles. When we talked about strength and conditioning earlier, like are there any specific muscles? Is everything quite good and sound, or is there an area that's letting you down kind of from an efficiency point of view? This is both from a thinking long-term injury prevention, but also from an efficiency point of view that we aim to do this. We look at your running gait, doing observations visually, but also like slowing it down with a slow motion camera, looking at measuring your cadence, ground reaction forces through accelerometers that we put onto your legs so we can get some actual statistical data behind it as well. In addition to that, we then look at you dynamically from a stability point of view, because you can be quite strong and stable, but when you start doing more dynamic stuff, you don't actually have the coordination and control to kind of keep it there. You can still be strong, but if the coordination isn't there, you can start to be running very efficiently because you're not keeping yourself in a nice stable position. Sometimes it shows up when we do the running gait analysis, sometimes we need to go deeper with the dynamic stability assessment as well. But once again, that's all measured through accelerometers, so you get like actual data feedback from it at the same time. Afterwards, with what you get from the Run Lab, you get a full written report of everything that's involved with my recommendations of everything that's going on there. Depending on what we find that is the issue, we give the bespoke information for that. So it's not everyone needs to get better cadence, it's like depending on what we find there. With talking about that sliding board puzzle, you have the one-off assessment for an hour where we go through and get the data. We then book another appointment once we had time to go through it and actually look at, right, how does this marry up together? How do we change one thing without messing up the other things, and look at it to try and pull it all together to make an overall recommendation about maybe start with this, when that's okay, start with this, when that's okay, starts with this. And it can be things like form cues, where we're trying to get you to kind of change how your running gait a little bit. Can be changing cadence, as I've talked about a few times, but sometimes it can be more exercise focused on individual muscle groups. It can be exercise focused on building up your control stability with things from there as well. We only have it at the Standards Clinic, it's not at the Fleet Clinic unfortunately, because this is where we've got the treadmill and all the equipment for it as well. But I'm the one that runs this. We have flexibility in the diary to do it throughout the week basically. And we do have a sample copy of it at the back as well that you can look at if you're interested afterwards as well. We also have a massage therapist here who's also a qualified sports therapist. There can be a lot of benefits to having, one I didn't mention this about earlier, but there are a lot of benefits that can be had from having massages as well. It increases blood flow to the area, so it can help with recovery after exercise. If you've just done an event, a few hours later, you can do some light massage can help with recovery, but if you are wanting to go deep, heavy massage, it's probably best to get it 2 or 3 days afterwards from there as well. I know some of you did see us there at the Yately 10K, but we were doing massages there, both pre and post as well. I remember someone coming up to me and saying like, I want a PB, you better give me a good massage before I go. And as I was massaging someone else, he walked past, like, I got my PB, it's all good. But yeah. It can also, with regards to helping recovery, it can help with removing waste products throughout the muscles, and by that we mean like lactic acid and things like that, and other enzymes that accrue, reducing inflammation, reducing swelling. Yes, in addition to that, it can improve flexibility, reduce muscle stiffness, reduce pain, reduce stress, and it's just quite nice to get a massage as well sometimes. I know most of the staff do tend to drop in with Amy for a massage every now and then. As I said, our massage therapist is also a qualified sports therapist, so she can provide guided exercise programs, she can progress exercises to help achieve your goals. I've had quite a few people, recently who come to see me after surgery and things like that, and they want to get back to being in the gym and doing heavy lifting and things like that, and it gets to a certain point and I'm like, yeah, you're good, there's nothing to worry about this, you've recovered, but to get a bit stronger, off you go to Amy, she'll get you even stronger for those things and kind of take you that last little step. So we do have her from that purpose as well. If you do have a Run Lab assessment and we do find some areas of weakness, we can go, Amy can go into more detail with helping. I usually give an exercise program out with all of them with my recommendations, but if you did want someone to guide you through that a bit more, Amy would be the person to see about that as well. And then obviously, last but not least, we are a physiotherapy company. So we're specialised in musculoskeletal injuries. We see people post-operatively after surgery. We provide manual therapy, acupuncture, shockwave therapy, ultrasound, paediatric physiotherapy. If you're not sure whether we're a right fit for you, we do also have a free discovery visit, discovery call program where you can have a free 15-minute consultation to see if it does work for you. We've had a few people before that have come in and they've had it, so I've got this, do you think it could help? Like, no, you need to see a surgeon right now. But we do it just to make sure that this isn't something you need to be worried about and that we are going to be a right fit for you as well. So it's all things to consider from that. Now that I've rambled on for a while, any other questions at all?